CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always here, I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander, hence the name. Tonight I'm joined by Jake Wayne of Jake Wayne Sports on Twitter if you're looking for him, and fellow Oklahoma State alum here to talk some Oklahoma State basketball, football, a little baseball, but most importantly, I think our fellow hatred of the Colorado football program and Deion Sanders, if I'm picking up right, as of today?
Yeah, as of today. I mean, I honestly thought Deion's tweets today were fake. I had to double check. You never know these days. People are just loosey-goosey changing their name on Twitter and making jokes all the time. But yeah, Deion tweeted a couple things that it got me triggered just a little bit today. And I guess we play Colorado this year for the first time in a while. So I guess it's good timing because we actually get to meet them on the field.
Yeah, I gotta say, I've got a family member. My mom actually went to Colorado, and so whenever they'd beat OSU, she'd always let me know about it in football. And then whenever they would not play OSU, she would have no idea what was going on. She didn't know the Heisman winner or anything at all. But when it's Colorado, it's like, hey, you know what? From California, want to try something different? Go to Colorado and then live it up. Of course, it's fun.
Yeah.
But
well, how's she feeling about the move to the Big 12? Because a lot of the former Pac-12 people seem a little bit disappointed, like the Utah fans. They're pretty vocal about being disappointed, thinking they're better than everybody else. Colorado, like how are the actual alums feeling about it?
You know, I could ask her, and I don't think she has any idea about anything about Colorado. But I do know, so I joined part of this College Huddle network, which I haven't really made too official on the podcast here. But I've had a chance to interview guys with the University of Arizona, and then also UCF, and then Arizona State. And all three of them, UCF guy cannot be higher on UCF. I mean, their enrollment is double Oklahoma State's. When it compares to Oklahoma State at the end of the day, it's kind of the shtick here when I'm asking them what do they think. And UCF guys like, hey, we're only going up. And to be honest, that's true. I mean, they keep on getting in a better conference every couple of years and keep on doing better and better. And then they'll have a bad football season. Then they'll hire Gus Malzahn and be relevant. And then, you know, I mean, I can't talk to UCF fans, right? I just can't. It just kills me inside.
Especially after the football game last year, we definitely have no room to talk to them. And basketball, they were extremely tough. They beat us in basketball as well, which was really disappointing. But they're definitely a school. Really, all the schools have had success in at least one of the sports so far. So they've came in and earned their stripes. And so I think they've all proven to be successful newcomers to the conference. So as an OG Big 12 member, Oklahoma State fan, the first four that came in, UCF, Houston, BYU, Cincinnati, I'm happy to have them. We'll see about the next four. There's been a little bit of tension on the social media. So football season is going to be a lot of fun is basically what I'm getting at, because it'll be some drama there.
Yeah, the University of Arizona guy, he basically was going, hey, we can't wait to see you in the Big 12 championship. If it's not Utah, it'll be us. And I told him, I said, I think K-State stands a good chance unless if they beat us. You know, I think K-State could stand a good chance. Otherwise, they've got a rough schedule too. But the Arizona State guy he put it in very, very nice words that we are a party school. He just said it very differently. He was like, hey, listen, we have 22 different varsity sports. There's always something going on every day of the week. You can always go to something. And we have a hockey arena. Like, do you guys have hockey? I'm like, I know we have a club team. I follow them religiously. They play in Tulsa, and they play against OU and all over the country.
Arizona State has a hockey team, like an actual NCAA hockey team?
Yeah, weirdly enough.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you follow the NHL much. The Arizona Coyotes, the NHL team, they play in this 5,000-seat stadium in Arizona at Arizona State because their previous deal fell apart with the previous arena they were in. So it's a whole weird deal there. But Arizona State and Arizona are both like, our enrollment's huge. So we're going to get all this NIL money. We're going to be fine. We'll be good. And also now that we're not playing the USC and UCLAs of the world where their enrollment's real big and their NIL's huge, now we kind of stand a little more of a chance. I was able to hit the guy from Arizona State over the head a little bit about Jaden Daniels. Like, hey, wouldn't you rather still have him on the roster? What you got NIL money? So why isn't he around still? But at the same point, that was more tongue in cheek. He knew they weren't keeping Daniels. He knew Jaden was gone. But I gotta say, Utah's I'm a little wary about. I mean, when I'm looking through all of the draft, which is this past weekend, and going through every single team that's got guys drafted, Oklahoma State's in such a different spot than everyone else because you talk about 20-plus returning starters. The average age of the offensive lineman for Oklahoma State is older than the Thunder, whole, average age. So It's really bizarre when you think about it. But it's not like these guys aren't producing talent. I mean, Arizona has a guy drafted in the first round. And I'm like, Arizona's a football school all of a sudden. It's just so there's, they've got a Heisman kind of real dark horse there as well. So I want to invite you on, talk some Oklahoma State football, of course, and kind of go through the schedule.
Absolutely. We haven't had a season as exciting as this one in a long time. Ollie Gordon came onto the scene last year. We have all of the veterans from our receiving core back. Obviously, we lost Leon Johnson, which he's getting his opportunity in the NFL and the Chargers training camp, I think. And then essentially the entire defense, entire offensive line. There were some mixed emotions amongst Poke fans about Alan Bowman coming in, or do we ride a young guy? My personal opinion on that is if you're going to have a veteran team, you might as well stick with a veteran quarterback who's proven that he can win big games. He can beat OU. So I guess in conclusion, a lot of excitement over the next couple of months. It's going to be a long summer. I know we all love summer. We all in Oklahoma, we love our country music, going to the lake, whatever. But man, football season, it's going to feel like it's right on the horizon for the next, 4 or 5 months, something like that.
Yeah, it'll be a long summer for sure, just because I'll be really anticipating the first couple of games, especially those first two Big 12 games against Utah and K-State respectively. And even South Dakota State doesn't seem like a slouch. Like usually we have Central Arkansas on the schedule, which I know we've just kind of sneaked by them a time or two in the past few years, but we really haven't played great in non-conference the last couple of years. But there's really not just a slouch game on the schedule. Now, do I think we should win the first 3 games? Don't really keep up with my Arkansas football. I'm sure I will when we get closer to. They have a new quarterback coming in because KJ Jefferson transferred out. Should beat them because they were in shambles last season. I don't imagine that they're going to just improve well enough to beat a veteran team like ours. I don't think anyone should have any issue with me expecting to win that game against Arkansas. And TU on the road, which is going to be over half Oklahoma State fans at that game probably, and obviously the home opener, South Dakota State, should win all 3, but no FCS joke Arkansas Pine Bluff schools. We're going to have to show up. There's going to be some quality players. Always when we play TU, they have a lot of guys who wanted to come play at Oklahoma State. And they have guys who did play at Oklahoma State and transferred to TU. So there's going to be a handful of players on Tulsa that are coming out with a vengeance. So, man, I'm excited, but it's kind of it almost makes it more exciting that we're not looking forward to playing Central Arkansas first game. Plenty of people have made it very well known on Twitter to don't look past the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. I think what was it, K-State or Iowa State or somebody lost to one of those Dakota schools within the last couple of years. I don't remember exactly what it was, but just even the non-conference is going to be fun. I think everyone probably knows a handful of Arkansas fans being from Oklahoma. So there's going to be some excitement there. And then we open up Big 12 play with the toughest part of the schedule, which we're not used to. Usually we've got OU at the end of the season as the exclamation point every year. Now we've got, I think, Utah and K-State back-to-back weeks. So we're going to have to earn it this season. A lot of people are saying with OU and Texas leaving the conference, the Big 12 is going to be trash. Oh, you guys are a power or group of 5 conference, whatever. That's not going to be the case. I mean, you saw Dion say on Twitter today that Shedeur Sanders is a top 5 pick. What's your son doing? You got Cam Rising coming back. Everyone makes fun of him and Alan Bowman being 7th years. K-State just got Colorado's transfer running back, Dylan Edwards. So they're going to be loaded back up again, it seems. Obviously, I think Avery Johnson is going to be the starter for them. So no slouches to start off. So I'm pretty excited for it. I'm the kind of guy who likes to take on competition. For me, we got to the Big 12 championship last season. Now we're going to the 12-team playoff. I'm going into this season thinking, let's make a run at it. Let's just see if we can't get that matchup at the end of the season in the quarterfinals against Georgia and try to make something happen. So that's where my mind's at going into the season. Obviously, Ollie Gordon, but everyone talks about him, so that's why I didn't
bring him up as much there. But if all goes to plan, we should be right there when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think we have just as good a shot as anyone else. I mean, I don't count us out. There's not the, oh, crap, we're playing OU with their Heisman hopeful on the roster at the end of the season. There's also not that one, oh, okay, we're playing Texas at some point filled with 5 stars. The thing that I am a little worried about is just going to Boulder at the last game of the season and playing 2 round 1 or day 1 draft picks, basically. That always just is going to be a little bit up there in the air. But then again, the way that Colorado team finished the year last year, and the fact that I have not heard anything at all about their offensive line getting better, it makes me real hopeful. Like, I mean, Deion Sanders and his son are getting just dragged on Twitter because it's, hey, yeah, your son met the ground 49 times last year. I mean, Sanders is getting sacked. Their offensive line is not great at Colorado. There's no going around that at all. And then, I mean, the portal, I think, closed yesterday, if I have that right. So we'll see. I'm sure there's something else that could happen and some more news that come out of the whole Deion Sanders camp in Colorado. But it seems as though, you know, there's a couple of games. There's that K-State Utah game, but we should be hitting the ground running with the game 1 against South Dakota State, like you're saying. I mean, I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, kind of go back to Colorado. It's obviously a hot topic in college football today with what Deion and Shedeur tweeted. Last season, I was pretty indifferent. Like, I thought Travis Hunter was extremely likable with his social media stuff. And honestly, some of Deion's press conferences and stuff, he said some good things. I was kind of rooting for him. But today, just as a neutral fan, it makes it really difficult to root for a coach whenever he is talking about players who he forced to transfer out, essentially, and then dragging them down after they leave. Like, forced players to transfer out. One of them, I forget the kid's name, he wanted to stay and try to earn his spot and fight, and then didn't get any attention whatsoever. Basically was just standing on the sideline at practice. Didn't get an opportunity because he didn't give Deion his wish of opening up a roster spot. And then he goes and plays at Austin P, I think is how you say it. And they're dragging him on social media. Shedeur doesn't even remember who he was. And then some other kid who had 38 yards last season said he was mid. And then it's like, dude, you guys are, for the neutral fan, are you just purposely trying to get the entire nation against you? Because unless you're just a Colorado fan or just a Deion-obsessed person, I don't know how you can root for these guys. I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, they, kind of opinion on them changed a little bit last season. Like, then I started kind of rooting for them. And then today it was just like flushed down the toilet. And so who knows where they'll be at the end of next season. But like you said, we haven't heard anything about the offensive line getting any better. Obviously saw how that turned out. I think they won a couple games at the beginning of the season last year. And then team wears down, offense, an already not good offensive line wears down, and you finish the season like 1-8 in conference play. And so like I said, my expectations are high. I would fully expect Colorado's season to be completely tanked, self-destructed at that point. And then when Shedeur leaves, does Deion even stay? Because going into a third year, you don't have your son there anymore. Obviously, you've been talking all this mess, saying you're going to turn him around and you don't lose and your son's going to go top 5. Well, what happens if Shedeur has an average year? He goes 3rd round next season, and then you go 4-8 again. Does Deion even come back next season? I don't know. All I hope is that Mike Gundy pulls in there, the Oklahoma State football team, the veterans that we have, a culture blowout right there. We talk about culture wins, like, oh, this is a culture win right here. If that game is even close, from here I am on May 1st, but if that game on Thanksgiving weekend in November is even close, then I'll just be dead wrong on this, because a team like Oklahoma State, teams like Utah, teams like K-State, well-rounded, well-coached teams should just blow a team like that out of the water.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's also what makes it a little bit more just situationally a little tough. Last year's game against BYU, we're going into that, and I'm going, okay, if we don't blow them out, I forget exactly what the line was before the game, how much we were favored by, but like I believe it was 2 scores. Yeah, 2+ touchdowns. And we ended up barely squeaking that one out just to go to the Big 12 championship, which is always a good thing. So it's one of those where, okay, I can just kind of see like you're saying, Colorado get worn down. Happens both sides, especially if we're facing, if we're facing Utah and K-State early. That is kind of a blessing in disguise, though, because we get past both of those.
And we get 2 bye weeks for the first time, because last season we had an early bye week and then just played like 8 straight games or 7 straight games. And 2 years ago really screwed us with injuries. This year, 2 bye weeks. I know you complain about it because as a fan, you want to watch your team every weekend, but I think that's going to help us this season, especially having those tough games early.
Yeah, I think it really will as well. The other thing thinking about is that, hey, fortunately, we don't have to play Arizona this year. I mean, there are a couple games where it's like, all right, you know what? I'm kind of glad we're not facing them for the first time this season. It's nice that we're, on one hand, it is kind of nice, Utah and K-State early, but it's nice that also that we at least get one of those games at home. Not everyone in the Big 12 is faring that same way. Now, I would much rather be playing Houston and Cincinnati, but you can't get everything going your way. And the other thing, too, is with Colorado, just kind of leave it there, is that they went 4-8 last year. So for all of their players to talk smack on social media, it's like, okay, whoop-de-freaking-do. You didn't make a bowl game. And the game that you're going to claim and hey, well, I was part of the Colorado team that beat TCU, the national championship runner-up the year before. Yeah, but TCU didn't have anyone left. Like they had a great recruiting class. Sonny Dykes came in at the perfect moment. They graduated a bunch of guys. A bunch of guys went to the pros and other places. Then they came back and they were just not the same team. It just was the first game of the season. It was a really high scoring, electric kind of game at the end. Right. So we all kind of still were buying into the Colorado hype. And then it's like, okay, wait, what's going on? You lost Oregon horrifically. And then USC, you played close and USC's bad. So lost its luster pretty quickly.
Yeah, you really had to have a well-trained eye to see the true Colorado Buffaloes after the TCU game, because TCU was coming off a national championship appearance, lost a lot of their players, but they had a veteran QB coming back who started before. They had one of our best receivers, J.P. Richardson, who just transferred in. And even their offense looked pretty good against Colorado that game. So at the time, we didn't realize how bad Colorado's defense truly was. But after they beat TCU, we're like, oh, okay, Dion might come in and do something. And then I think they were favored by like 2 or 3 against Nebraska, and then they ended up pulling away against Nebraska. And then Colorado State, I think, was after that. And that one went
to double overtime, I want to say.
It was a double overtime, and then you're kind of like, okay, was that just a rivalry game, or are they maybe not as good as we thought they were? And then obviously we saw what happened. But you mentioned Arizona, like we're dodging them on the schedule. That's really nice. Like we like to make fun of OU for losing to Arizona last year in the bowl game. That quarterback receiver duo that they have is going to be one of the best in the country. I was honestly pretty surprised at this day and age that those players didn't transfer. But like you said, Arizona State both have the alumni base to probably throw some NIL dollars around. So that was cool to see a team, because Arizona was on like previous Kansas level of bad before the last couple of years. Coach comes in, turns it around. And so it's kind of cool to see. It's kind of cool to see Kansas doing a lot better as well. But, Arizona State, I really like their coach too, Kenny Dillingham. He didn't get fired, did he? I didn't see anything.
No, I don't think so. I think he was able to keep his job there because he came
on. It was his first season last year, so they won a few games, but they kept it decently close against us. Obviously, we had the 3 QB carousel going, but he was a really good coach. Like even after they lost some games, reporters were asking him, "How do you keep going? Like when the team's all down, like how do you keep motivation?" He was like sarcastically like, "Oh yeah, we're just going to give up. Yeah, we're just going to say, yeah, we're going to lose." We're like, no, obviously we're going to prepare this week and go try to win. Like, what else do you guys want me to say? But he's a really likable coach. I thought he was good. And then Utah, of course, which it is insane how similar Gundy and Whittingham's track records are. Like their records are like a few games apart, like their total win percentage, and they've had roughly they've coached about the same amount of games, I think, something like that. So, man, that's going to be probably a top 2 or 3 game of that weekend, I would have to imagine, whenever we play Utah. And then 2 7th-year QBs, I'm sure that's going to be a set on the national broadcast probably 10 or 11 times on that day. But one thing I was going to say about probably the Utah game, could be the K-State game as well, is that could be one of those instances like Oklahoma State versus Baylor a couple years ago, when we played them early, and then we had a rematch in the Big 12 championship. Now, we obviously have a lot more teams this year, so that really depends on what some other teams do and who beats who. That Oklahoma State-Utah game, that seems like one that could be like if we lost to Utah and then we start figuring things out later on in the season, we go beat Colorado and another team loses, then we have a rematch with Utah, and then we go into that game. Oh, we're a completely different team than we were in September, October. So I could see a situation like that kind of happening. But they're good enough. I think last season they got hurt by injuries towards the end, and they just kind of, lost some toss-up games there. But that's happened to us a handful of times in the last few years as well, especially the season before this last one, whenever we just the wheels completely fell off. But that first half of the season, it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I've talked with a K-State guy a couple times, and he's let me know about, we didn't talk about last year. We talked about the year before, and then I quickly just said, I'm good with just skipping this one. That was a mental skip. Let's talk about last year, where basically we were buttering him up for a possible win, and then we ended up beating him by 8. Granted home, but still. The team that surprised me though is that we fortunately do not play KU this year. I don't think.
Yeah.
And their over/under wins, it's kind of head scratching here from Vegas is higher than Oklahoma State's. They have 8.5, and Oklahoma State we're at 7.
We're middle of the pack.
Yeah,
we're middle of the pack on the Vegas odds, which is really interesting. It's not surprising because I'm usually pretty surprised at our win total line every year. I took it last year when I was in Colorado for a wedding. It was like Labor Day weekend flying in right when I landed. I was like, Oklahoma State over, I think it was 6.5 wins last year. We ended up winning 9 going to the conference championship. Kansas, I have deja vu with Kansas because both of the last 2 years, Jalen Daniels gets hurt and everyone thinks he's going to transfer. And you see all the rumors on social media saying like, he's going to get offered. He's going to go to an Alabama or a Texas or a big school with a lot of money. And then he makes an announcement that he's coming back. And so we'll see if he can stay healthy. Kansas is going to be right there in it because they were pretty good with Bean at quarterback. So Jalen Daniels, who a lot of people forget about just because he's missed so much time with injury, but that's definitely a team to watch out for. I don't know how their Vegas line is higher than Oklahoma State, mainly just because of the starters we have coming back on defense and offense, like both sides of the ball. Like we should be like a football team. It's one in the trenches. We've got everybody coming back. I guess does he make that much of a difference? He might. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, when I'm looking down the KU schedule, that's the one thing I can think of that would give them an extra win. Basically that extra win, the win totals, is that they're not playing it. With all due respect, they're just not playing the same schedule. Their notable games here is at West Virginia, at K-State, and Iowa State. So they're avoiding Utah, they're avoiding Arizona, and they're more than likely also, if I could just pull it up real quick, playing the Arizona States and the Cincinnati's, and the Houstons of the world, where they just got the easier path this year. They don't have to come play Oklahoma State either. So that's kind of nice for them as well too. And I do remember 2 years ago with, I think, Gunner at that point at the helm going, man, this is a tough day for us, just because it was Rangel and Gunner trying to figure it out. And it was a low scoring one. It was right after that K-State game too, where I'm like, okay, can we show some life? And then it was, and then it was like, okay, maybe Spencer Sanders is actually really, really hurt, and we just don't know it because something's going on. And like you said, the KU backfield alone is just got enough guys. Ollie Gordon's in a different level, I believe, but at the same point, KU just sneakily has good guys. Lance Leipold's done a really good job there recruiting and a really good job coaching, all out of nowhere, it seems. I do laugh when I see a top 10 poll and it's got Lance Leipold on there and doesn't have Gundy. I'm like, it's just because they're bored.
Yeah, they have him as the top 7 coach in the country, which, here's the thing, as far as turning the program around, that, absolutely incredible how he did that. So definitely a solid coach. I think Gundy's longevity, though, you could be good and then have a down year and then come back and be good and have 3-4 good years in a row. And by the way, when I say down year, I say 7-5, 6-6 at worst. It's happened a couple times. Tyreek Hill year, that was a horrible year, but obviously fun memories at the end of that season. But the Gundy's longevity is absolutely incredible because a lot of coaches just kind of their light burns out, and then like there's been a handful of coaches who, you know, have been there 40 years. You think of, you know, Penn State, or you think of can't even really, like Bob Stoops for a while at OU. He was there forever. Gundy's kind of turning into, like, he is Stillwater, like the national brand of Ollie Gordon might be rivaling him like just this year only, but as far as a celebrity in Stillwater, it's Mike Gundy. Like all the Barstool personalities and ESPN personalities, like everyone knows who Mike Gundy is. So yeah, putting Lance Leipold ahead of Gundy on like a best coaches in college football lit, I think that's a little bit of a reach. Call me biased, I don't know, because consistency is you know what's impressive most about Gundy. Like Fiesta Bowl 2011, come back a few years later, J.W. Walsh, Clint Chelf years, you have some really good years. And then all of a sudden, Fiesta Bowl again in 2021, 10 years later, completely different team, completely different staff, completely different coaches and everything. And you're right back there. And Oklahoma State's really not supposed to be a team who is right there in the top 10, 15 every year. We're in the middle of Stillwater, Oklahoma, who, I mean, it's basically just small town Oklahoma if the college wasn't there. I mean, so what Gundy's done is absolutely impressive, but I'm not taking anything away from Leipold. They have a solid team. They're going to be really good. I am also glad that we're not playing them this year. I think that benefits them and us just because it'd be a really good game, especially if Jalen Daniels can stay healthy.
Yeah. I mean, that's so true. There is the rest of our schedule here besides that Utah and K-State game that I want to ask you of which is the next game here, maybe except for Colorado, because kind of talked that one out that scares you the most, you know? So
yeah,
there's just there's three more. I mean, we basically play Utah, and it just kind of sucks. This is one of the years where we only have 6 home games instead of the 7. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, face Utah, and then the last home games is West Virginia, Arizona State, and Tech. So
yeah, the road games are where it feels like anything can happen. You'd like to think you get a defense. Like 2021 was an all-time defense. So we were just going on the road, built the confidence that we knew we were going to get stops. And so we felt more confident on the road because your offense isn't always going to be clicking with, you know, it could be a night game. The crowd could be going crazy. But I think it really depends on the defense. I hope year 2 of Brian Nardo is similar to year 2 of Jen Knowles. That's the famous 2021 year. Who knows? We have the veterans. We have the guys to make it happen. Obviously, that year, NFL talent just blossomed out of nowhere through the cracks in the concrete, basically. And obviously, some guys transferred out. But we've reloaded, we've rebuilt, and we've definitely got some NFL potential on our defense. But the road games are what scare me because it's kind of like anything can happen, like the back-to-back road games against BYU and Baylor. It scares me just a little bit, not because how good those teams are going to be, but like Dave Aranda he just won the Big 12 2 years ago. Obviously not a very good year last year, but I think they lost to Utah by like a touchdown early in the season. Like they're going to be competitive. Now, obviously last year was a good year, but they weren't good the year before they won the Big 12 either. And so you don't really know how, like a coach that good who's proven that he can turn a team around in one season. That's scary. On the road, BYU. Like BYU almost beat us last year whenever we'd only lost 3 games all season, and we were playing for everything, playing to get into the Big 12 championship. So going on the road in Provo, unfamiliar territory. OU went there last year, and BYU almost beat them. I felt like they should have beat them. And then the other road game, besides Colorado, is at TCU, going to Fort Worth, which, man, I think we have some bad memories at TCU, basically. 2 seasons ago, whenever that was our first loss, and then the wheels kind of fell off. We beat Texas for homecoming the week after, and then the wheels fell off. So I kind of have a bad taste in my mouth in Fort Worth as well, so I never feel really comfortable, not because it's a crazy place to play and their fans are rowdy and it's packed. it just could be a 2:30 or 11 o'clock game where we're off that day and the offense isn't clicking. And it kind of goes back to it depending on the defense. If they're just running all over our defense like UCF did last year in the rain, like freak games like UCF last year scare me about all those. At home, it kind of feels like you can power through more. Fans are, fighting through the weather going crazy. The road games are where a vibe can get off really easily. And so I feel good about West Virginia at home. I feel good about Texas Tech at home. Now, Tech might not be bad, but at home in November, I feel pretty solid about that game. It's going to be senior night. Would be cool if it was like a night game atmosphere. So those 3 road games very well could go in and blow all 3 of those teams out. But I feel like a weird road game like UCF last year just kind of it sits fresh for some reason.
Yeah, it really does. I am pretty worried about the BYU game because that's a tough test the week before, and then all of a sudden we come back and I mean, it's West Virginia. I mean, they're just never playing easy, but it comes a string of games that's kind of tough, and then it's at BYU. So it'd be nice to hit a good break in the schedule there where we just kind of have one fall our way. Yeah, at the end of the day against BYU, and that seems like it could happen. Talking about basketball for a second here, there's a tweet you put out. I think it was on Monday here. If OK State basketball can add Cisse and Wesley Yates, next season will be the most exciting we've had in Stillwater since Smart. And then just going to expand on that, because of course we've had Kate Cunningham in between, and you kind of explained that a little bit too. But just most exciting is what's intriguing here. Yeah.
So I almost, people ask the question, like, would you rather Oklahoma State football or basketball win a national championship? And like basketball, like I became an Oklahoma State fan mainly because I loved John Lucas when I was a little kid. I loved the basketball team. Like we were really good and it was awesome. Naturally grew to love the football team as well. Ended up going to school there. But I am just so desperate for an exciting basketball season. It feels like all the transfers that Lutz has brought in so far, the kid from FIU, Arturo Dean, led the nation in steals last year. We got a guy from Texas Tech, Robert Jennings, who, he was a role player for Texas Tech. So it feels like we've got kind of the foundation. But some guys who are coming back, Bryce Thompson, veteran, Jamiron Keller, who had some really good games last season. Here's the thing. Our team was terrible last season. So a lot of people are up in arms about Garrison and Javon Small leaving. Garrison's the one that kind of hurts. He's obviously, one of the best players he's one of the best players in the Big 12 last year. He was just a raw freshman. I'm saying best players in the Big 12 talent-wise because he's a 6'10". He has touch. He can shoot free throws. He kind of developed a mid-range jumper. So that sucked to see him leave. But going back to the tweet, Wesley Yates was a pretty big recruit who transferred to Washington and then didn't end up playing this year due to injury. And then he transferred out. Not sure why he transferred out. Could be due to the situation, whatever. But that dude's an absolute stud, and I think he's one of those players that would kind of come out of nowhere in the Big 12. Like you always see K-State or Texas Tech getting transfers who are just like really good, and you're like, oh, where'd this guy come from? And they came from some random school, and they just didn't even play the year before, something like that. So I feel like he could be that guy. And right now, the only thing here's the thing: we're missing a handful of roster spots right now, obviously, but Moussa Cisse obviously played at Oklahoma State. There were some things he had to work on. He needed to develop more touch around the rim, but elite shot blocker. He is a lob guy who can catch lobs. He can ignite a crowd in Gallagher-Iba Arena. So if we can get a guy like Wesley Yates, who's a 6'7" guard who can shoot, and then a 7-footer with Moussa Cisse, need a couple more rebounders, of course. But we're looking at Jamiron Keller, who I think is going to have a way bigger role this season since he's going to be one of the guys who's been in Stillwater for a season. I think Bryce Thompson he's a solid like third option on a team, and I think that's what he could be. And honestly, if we got those two guys, some more role guys around them, some rebounders, maybe a couple more shooters, I almost get the vibe of like K-State last year when they made that Elite Eight run. Marquise Noel, he was a point guard, I think at like Arkansas Little Rock before he went to K-State. And he developed his game and grew so much at K-State in 2 years that he literally led them to an Elite Eight run. So that, that might be just because we're very similar programs to K-State and Texas Tech. And both of those teams have made deep runs in the NCAA tournament in recent memory. Texas Tech was there last year, obviously lost to NC State in the first round, who ended up going to the Final Four. But basketball is where I follow recruiting a lot more. Everyone knows Cisse, but Wesley Yates, there's been a couple tweets about him from some guys. I think Jeremiah Johnson, who's our freshman coming in, his dad was like kind of trying to vouch for him on Twitter. So I think we're closer than people think, and I really like the guys that we've gotten so far. And the guys we have coming back, the few guys that we have coming back are really good foundational pieces as well. I think it's honestly probably a good thing after the disaster that last season was that we have a lot of roster turnover, because I'm not kidding. That was the worst basketball that I've ever seen in my entire life. And so don't need any of those old habits coming in to the new season. I think Lutz is a good basketball coach. Watched a little bit of Western Kentucky against Marquette. And then obviously I've kind of done a little bit more research on Lutz and a lot of the players that we've gotten. And as far as just looking at a basketball team, Lutz is building the roster that fits his style of coaching. It seems like a lot of movement on offense, a lot of ball screens, a lot of off-ball screens. We didn't see a lot of that at Oklahoma State recently. So I like Steve Lutz, thought it was a good hire. Honestly, with some of the money that other schools were throwing around, probably the best hire that we could have made. We had some other targets. Drake's coach, I don't even remember his name right now, but went to West Virginia. Dusty May went to Michigan. Mike Boynton followed him. But as much as I love Mike Boynton's brand of basketball as a head coach was just the worst thing to watch ever to me. And Cade Cunningham drowned that out because he was such a generational talent. He could just take over a game by himself. And whenever he's taken over the game by himself, finally opens up for Caleb Boone and Avery Anderson, and they start playing better. They haven't played that good in their careers again since Cade Cunningham, because he was opening it up for everything else. So that gave Mike Boynton that contract extension, and we've kind of had to suffer the last few years. But I truly do think it's going to be a completely new era in Stillwater, and it's not the old days where you have to build with freshmen who you're recruiting. You can get veterans. Like, we're recruiting a lot of old guys on our team, and combine those with the younger guys like Jamyron Keller and Connor Dow, who had some really good games last season. Showed some flashes. Not saying he's going to be a main piece, but we're talking role players. You got to have a lot of them. You got to have a lot of guys in the trenches to get rebounds and just, will your way at the end of games. And I think Lutz is building the pieces to do that. We're two really good recruits away from, I think, having being able to see the roster and be like, oh, we're actually fielding a pretty good basketball team here. I think we only have 7-8 guys right now on the roster. So we've got 4 or 5 spots left to fill. And if 2 of those guys are starting caliber players like Wesley Yates, I think, and Musa Cisse would be, I'm going to be pretty excited for the season next year.
Yeah, I think I will be too. Just no matter what, it'll be something different and something new and exciting. I mean, past 7 seasons, like you said, got 1 NCAA tournament appearance, 1 other year, COVID, we would have been clearly in the tournament. And that's kind of it. So, dealing with the postseason ban is tough. Who knows if we would have made it that year or not. It was really close. Probably not. And then I'm with you. I mean, it was just tough. It was like Boynton wanted to coach defensively, but just didn't know exactly how. And then was really just a really, really good player when it was his turn. He was the general, but when he couldn't instill that same message into his guys who had to be the general on the court, it was just falling a little bit short. And right. Props to him. He made a decision where him and his wife gets to go back home to Michigan. And of course he seems to be still an avid sport for Oklahoma State. So couldn't wish anything but the success for him, except for when we play Michigan. Yeah.
And he was a great ambassador for Oklahoma State while he was here. And he was easy to root for. Like, when we would win big games and we would play well, he was really easy to root for. Anytime we played well without Cade Cunningham, it lasted 3 or 4 games, and it was back to kind of the same old stuff. Like, even this last season, we had a big road win at Cincinnati. I think we won 2 games in a row right there, which I know it's not a lot, but for last season it was a lot. And we lose to OU on that heartbreaking buzzer beater, and then just season over. Like, played terrible every game after that, including the Big 12 tournament. We got blown out by UCF. Like, it was so bad. And whenever I say the most exciting, part of that is because we're turning the page to something new, right? So it was exciting whenever Brad Underwood came in, because we had Juwan Evans and then the building blocks like Jeff Carroll and Mitchell Solomon and Cam McGriff and Lindy Waters. Juwan Evans was obviously the best player. You have a 3-point shooter in Phil Forte. You have a guy in the trenches like Mitchell Solomon. So turning the page to this year, we have a couple guys from last year, Bryce Thompson, Connor Dow, Jamiron Keller, some good building blocks, similar to how McGriff and Lindy and Jeff Carroll were. And you have to find your Juwan Evans. Obviously, he wasn't like a guy who was going to go on and tear it up in the NBA. He was a great college basketball player. And you've got to find that guy. And then every team has to have like an anchor, like a 7-footer blocking shots, making it tough for good guards to drive to the rim. You got to throw them off a little bit. You got to have somebody to get down there and rebound. One note I also want to make, Keon Williams transfers to Abilene Christian. Like, he got so much better last season. He was one of the ones that I was like, oh, he should stay here and continue to be a main guy. And with a new coach, like, he's gotten so much better. I hated him being on the court his freshman year. Last year, I was like, oh, he's rebounding well. He can get to the rack. Shooting okay, obviously could improve. Then he goes and transfers to Abilene Christian. You have to wonder what the conversations were like there. Like, I can't imagine that Lutz told a guy like Keon, who's just a freak athlete, to leave. And I still can't figure out why he couldn't go to a better school than Abilene. Like, are they throwing around like decent NIL money down there? Not that he's like a first team all Big 12 guy, but he was a Big 12 basketball player. I mean, I don't know.
He was definitely the best player for us in that Bedlam game, it seemed. I mean, he was the one who was making plays at the end of the day. He may not have had the best stats in the world, but he was the guy who was keeping us in it with clutch rebounds, getting the foul line, driving hard to the basket, doing all those types of things. I've been asked about this as well too, and the main thing I come away with is that just minutes wise. He looks around and goes, you got Keller, you got Thompson, then you got Jennings, you got another UCF, you got another transfer in, but he's 6'7" at a UCF, Avery. You got Arturo Dean as well. Like, where are his minutes coming as a 6'5" guy? And if that's what he's looking at, and he's going, hey, am I going to be able to play 20 minutes a game? And ABCU comes up and goes, heck, you can play 35. And he's, I mean, maybe he's playing the long game. I mean, hopeful. I mean, granted, I don't want to say kid because I graduated not too long ago. It's been 6 years. But at the same point, I also am kind of like, man, it's just kind of like one of those moves where either it's kind of like the kid mentality of like, I'm not going to start. I want to go start. Or it's the like real adult mentality, which is what I would guess he's doing of, hey, you know what? I can go to Abilene Christian for a minute, play 35 minutes a night, really get a lot better over a year of just playing ball every night. And we know we played Abilene last year. We lost by 5 at home to them. So we know they go play teams and he'll get seen. Right. So that may be part of it. He's thinking, hey, he can transfer twice. Why not? Why not do it? And see what's up, especially if Dean's promised some minutes. I mean, leader he went to FIU, that's not where what'd you say? That's not where Marquise Noel went. I mean, we're talking better than there. And then also he leads the nation in steals. He wasn't just getting offered Oklahoma State. So what do we do to kind of sweeten that deal? Thompson coming back too. Thompson was he was all due respect to him. Him and Dow were running the Remember the 10 run a couple weekends ago. And we're making some good times. They were, of course, walking at the end just to kind of show off that they didn't have to run the whole time to put up a sub 40. I'm going to say 5K because that's what I can do. But at the same point here, I would guess Williams decided to do one of those. I know he's one of the players that last year, I'm with you though. I was like, man, if we can keep this guy around, give him 2 more years after this one, he's going to be killing it. He'll be He reminds me a little bit, granted, just kind of like athletic build-wise, really, of Lou Dort. They're the same height. Yeah. They're kind of that linebacker kind of stuff. Besides that, the fact that I learned Lou Dort is the third most amount of threes in Thunder history today.
Yeah.
I kind of go, Williamson don't match up real well at all on a lot of things. But, maybe he has the chance. I mean, Lou Dort was undrafted for a reason, and I was shocked that he was the third on the team in threes, of course, behind Russ and KD, or KD and Russ, excuse me. But still, that was one of those where I go, okay, maybe he could. Who knows? Yeah.
Keon does need to develop a jump shot because it's not pretty. Definitely had more touch this year, but Lou Dort's he's shooting great, especially in the playoffs. He's been outstanding. But one thing I was going to add is that a guy like Bryce Thompson, whenever you watch him play, like whenever I went to the Oklahoma State Creighton game this past season, and we got our butts beat. However, you could just tell early in the game, they called a foul on Bryce when he was playing really good defense on Trey Alexander. And I could just see he wants to win so bad, and he hated it so much that our team was horrible. I think what a lot of fans don't realize is that there's certain players who that you have the meme, that shit means something to me. I think at this day and age, when a player kind of isn't very good and they transfer out, you're like, oh, I feel like I cared about winning more than the player did. He doesn't care about Oklahoma State. Bryce Thompson's a guy who you can tell ever since he's been here, transferred from Kansas after his freshman year, you can tell he loves Oklahoma State. He had every opportunity to transfer the last couple of years, and he just wants to win. So if anything, I'm really hoping that we can just pull a season together and have a chance at the end. Sit there in February and be on the bubble, let's win a couple big road games and go try to make a run. That's kind of my hope for next season. So whenever you asked about my tweet, exciting, that just means because last year was just so horrible. Just new brand of basketball, turn the page, come out against a couple of non-conference teams and just play good, move a lot of aggressive defense, get a couple blowout wins and not lose to Southern Illinois or Abilene Christian. And that will fire the fans up. That will make it the most exciting season in Stillwater since Marcus Smart. And I say that because Cade Cunningham was the COVID year. Hard to get excited about anything during COVID. So that would have been a great season, would have been some great GIA moments, but there wasn't. We were all just sitting there eating our hot dogs and 5-6 feet away or 9 seats apart from the next fan over, So it was just disappointing. So that's why I kind of the Cade Cunningham year is exempt from being classified as most exciting. Because you can only be so excited from the couch. I enjoy going to the games and being a part of it and feeling the electricity in Gallagher-Iba.
Yeah, me too. Because I remember that Cade year where we played Tech at home, and then that was one of the more thrilling games. And when Gallagher's rocking, wrestling or basketball, either way, it's an incredible environment to be in. Well, also want to ask you here just a little bit about baseball. Last night, of course, recording this on a Wednesday here, so last night I played Wichita State and put up, I believe, 11 runs in the first inning. Seem to be rolling along real well right now. Gosh, Nolan Schubert, 4 home runs in a game is insane. Yeah, I don't know how that's
incredible.
I don't know how that's real, honestly. But what do you think this baseball team could do? I mean, are we one of those teams where, hey, regional, super regional, maybe College World Series we're sniffing around? Everything I read is just hey, our pitching is just injured. So that's where I'm worried about first and foremost.
Yeah, so the last couple of years have really disappointed me come playoff time. 2 years ago, we lost to Arkansas in our own regional that we hosted. Last year, I think, what did we lose? The first 2 games or first two of the first 3 games in our own regional. So that was really disappointing. I think it's going to come down to pitching because we've proven that we have the bats to make a run. And in baseball, it's a funny sport. Whenever you're hot, whenever the bats are hot, they're hot. You just need 3 pitchers to be clicking, get outs when you need them, strike, leave a runner on second base. Whenever you're only up 1 run, everybody gets pumped, strike the guy out. The last couple of years, in a lot of the games that we've lost this season, the teams have scored 12, 13 runs on us, and it's been really disappointing. So I think it's going to come down to pitching. We have the bats. I went to the game this past, what was it? This past Saturday, or I went to the second game of the doubleheader against BYU. Right when I walk in, we hit back-to-back home runs, and then the next out was at the warning track. And obviously the game against Wichita State, we scored like 18, 20 runs, something like that. I don't know what the exact final score was, but the bats are hot. If our pitchers can shut down good teams, we're probably going to host a regional if we can finish out strong here. And it's going to come down to pitching at the end of it. And I've seen a lot of fans on X not too happy with Rob Walton over the last couple of years. So here's the thing. I like Rob Walton. You gotta win your regional this year, though, because if we don't, it's just going to be a lot of the same old stuff that fans have been complaining about.
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like we're almost in that place where it's like, hey, we should be so good in baseball every single year, and we just can't finish it. You know, we can't just get over that hump. We can't just go on to the super regional. And this year, I feel like if we do get the super regional, we host it or we just go, period. We get out of the first round. Then all of a sudden we're cooking. But last year, it ended with losses to ORU and Dallas Baptist, where I don't know what our deal is against Dallas Baptist. I mean, we just cannot beat them, it seems. It's bizarre. And I know they're a good baseball program. I know that I mean, it's not like I don't know if they have a football team, but it's not like they're one of the small schools. It's like, what are we doing? But win the games in front of you, win the games you should win, and then all of a sudden you're cooking. I mean, it seems like that's what the tennis team's doing. At least in men's and women's. We'll get you out on this, though, for sure, is that I'm also a big Thunder fan. Grew up in Oklahoma City, so you're a big Thunder fan here as well. What's your, like, maybe they're blue tinted glasses or so, but what is your thoughts on the rest of the season here? How far do you think Thunder can go if you're being either honest with yourself or, heck, if you just want to show your blue heart and be prideful just as I am?
Yeah, I normally wear my orange tinted glasses, but the last few months I've swapped them for the blue tinted glasses. Here's the thing. It's funny because the Thunder are getting so much hate from just like, I guess you could call it NBA Twitter still. I know it's X. Like teams like the Mavs, teams like the Magic, even like Timberwolves fans I've seen, they do not like that the Thunder got good as quickly as they did. You saw members of the media, some guy called the Thunder the black eye of the NBA. Charlotte started 3-1 like 2 or 3 years ago. And he said, oh, Charlotte, they have all this young talent, Miles Bridges and LaMelo Ball, and they didn't have to go on a multi-year tank job like OKC's doing, which is the black eye of the NBA. It's like, dude, we literally went to the playoffs in the bubble, went to Game 7, had 2 years where we weren't very good, and then we're back in the play-in game. We're back in the play-in game last year where we lost to Minnesota. And I think even after last season, Thunder fans, I think on Bill Simmons on a podcast, he said he has the Thunder as the 4 seed in the West. And Thunder fans were pumped about that. We were like, oh, that's awesome. Like even we didn't expect to be the 1 seeds going into the playoffs. I know our record was the same as the 2 and the 3 seed Nuggets and Timberwolves, but we were hoping like 5th or 6th seed, maybe try to win a series. But here we are as the 1 seeds, had the tiebreaker over the Nuggets since we beat them 3-1 in the regular season. We swept the Pelicans with ease. First game was tough. Fourth game was tough. Didn't matter because we blew them out the second and the third game. Winner of Mavs and Clippers, which I don't know, are they even playing tonight? They might be playing tonight. I'm not sure what the score is or if that's even started. Similar matchup either way. Obviously different styles of play, but man, feels like a series that we can definitely win the way we're playing right now. And if you win that, you play the winner of the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. And that's kind of where I stop and kind of going to say it's going to be just a battle every single game. Every game is going to be a toss-up if we can get to that point. Heck, might even be like that next round against the Mavs or Clippers. But I will go as far as to say with my blue tinted glasses on, that we should beat the Mavs or the Clippers. It will be tough. Could go to 6, hopefully not 7. But then after that, I think every single game's a toss-up against Wolves or Nuggets. And then if you climb that mountain, you've probably got the Celtics, which they're really good. It's not like they've dominated us at full health the last couple of years. So my thing is, I'll be disappointed if we don't make it to the Western Conference Finals. If you would have told me before the season that I would feel that way, I would be like, no, what are you talking about? I would love to just win a playoff series and be right back in the mix. And I've been having so much fun with these playoff games. They're so exciting. Friends wanting to get together, like, people watching the games at bars and like staying up late. Doesn't matter if you got work tomorrow or not. And it's just so fun. It would just suck for it to end next round against the Mavs or the Clippers. So I think we should win that series in 6. And then from there, I'm just gonna not make any predictions, and I'm just gonna root after that.
Yeah, I got to say, I did not think at all that this team would be this good this quick. I mean, that is for sure. I think it's Justin Termine had that tweet where he said the black eye of the league.
That's right.
And I'm so surprised he still has it up. I just cannot believe it's been years. And I think he probably keeps it up for, honestly, engagement, because people just retweet it every so often.
Yeah, they go back to it after every big game.
Yeah, so good business decision there, Justin. But with that being said, I'm with you as well. If someone had told me, hey, you know what, we're going to be 4 seed, Bill Simmons says it, I'm going, okay, all right, cool. Yeah. I mean, hey, I'll believe when I see it, because we made it to a playing game last year, and we won one playing game and then lost to this same New Orleans Pelicans team without Zion, I believe. Or no, we beat them, and lost to the T-Wolves.
We lost to the Wolves, yeah.
But still, it's one of those where no matter what, we should be able to beat the Kawhi-less Clippers, and we should be able to beat the Mavericks either way. Mavericks scare me a little bit just because they've had some real hot starts against us we haven't been able to overcome. But I'm with you. If we don't make the Western Conference Finals, we're the 1 seed. Like, there's a reason why you're the 1 seed. You don't get there from just kind of rolling through the bad teams and losing the good ones. It doesn't work that way. Youngest team in the league. And then it seems as though maybe Luka starts playing a little bit worse. Maybe, Paul George plays a little worse.
I've got a lot of Mavs friends, or Mavs fan friends. And that one buddy told me, because went to college at Oklahoma State, obviously a lot of Dallas people. I had a friend say, like, if we lost to the Mavs, I would have to delete my phone number because of how much shit that because even the regular season games, just constant back and forth, guys. There are a lot of mutual friends in Oklahoma City and Dallas. So that would be a lot of fun, yet scary. I think it'd be worth it. I think as fun as that series would be, I'd almost want the Mavs to win, not because I think we have a better chance to beat them than the Clippers. I think it's pretty equal. But it would be just a fun series with the two cities being so close to one another, with so many people everyone knows people in Dallas, probably Mavs fans. And so it would just be a blast. So I guess I'm rooting for the Mavs. I don't know in this first series against the Clips.
Yeah, it's somewhat like 30% of Oklahoma State enrollees are from Texas. And I want to say at least 15 of people 15%'s got to be from the DFW general area.
Right.
And yeah, on one hand, it's the Mavs, that city that close. On the other hand, it's 2 former Thunder guys, 3 former Thunder guys, including Paul George. So yeah, Westbrook and Harden, Paul George. It'd be just crazy either way. Storylines, no matter what, all over the place. But you know what? Good riddance that we finally left the Lakers out of it. We can talk some real basketball now. We can actually get into it. We can start talking about if LeBron really will play with Bronny next year, or will he retire, or will he just become the media circus he is at all times every day?
It's a mess.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying if we don't get to the finals, I'm disappointed. The Western Conference Finals, if we get to the NBA Finals, I'm over the moon, excited, because this team's young. I mean, like I said earlier, younger than the offensive line for Oklahoma State football. So
yeah. I mean, youngest team to ever win a series in NBA history, or either that or the youngest team ever to sweep a series. I don't remember which one it was, but pretty impressive if you ask me. They're like 23 years old, or average age.
Yeah, pretty darn great no matter what. Well, Jake, here, I'll let you say here one more time, where can everyone find you here as we kind of wrap up this episode?
Yep, absolutely. So find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Jake Wayne Sports. if you followed me before, you might remember me as like Last 33 Jake, something like that. That was an old project that I did. We've since moved on from it. So we're now Jake Wayne Sports on Twitter. If any of you guys were confused, but a lot of Oklahoma State stuff, a lot of Thunder stuff, especially this time of year. Love country music, so post about that kind of stuff a lot, repost some of my favorite artists and whatnot. And then after that, it's just general banter with friends and colleagues and whatnot. But I like to follow back, so give me a follow.
Sounds like a good plan there. And then please follow, as always, at the CGA Tour on X, Instagram, TikTok, wherever. And go subscribe on YouTube. We're 10 away from 200. So a great deal there. And Jake, thanks again so much for joining.
Yep, absolutely. It was a blast. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.